Oh, we're starting. Okay.
Okay, just waiting for everyone to join. Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third installment of our Perfect Match series. This has been a 6-part event, all around finding the right sales tools for you. So we're so happy that you could join us today on this very, very important topic. Today's Fireside Chat is an exploration into revenue forecasting. It's obviously a topic that's pivotal to any business. So I'm delighted to be the host for today's session. I'm the Chief Operations Officer here at Hubble. And in case you're not familiar with Hubble, here's some fast facts about us, the markets we operate in, and some of the clients that we serve. But this is not about us today. This is about a topic that's been raised by a lot of our clients, and it's the importance of robust forecasting practices and how this can be impacted by AI in the future. Obviously, forecasting is like looking into a crystal ball, and if only we had a crystal ball, but perhaps AI could be the answer that we've been looking to. And we're going to dig into this a little bit more today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest today. So we have Daryn Smith, who's the CEO of Hubble, and Rory Brown, who's the co-founder and chief customer officer to Cluster. So thank you guys for being here. So would you mind introducing yourselves, telling us a little bit about your area of expertise and what specifically excites you about our topic today? So Daryn, shall I come to you first? And let me drop the screen share so we can see your face.
Cool, awesome, and perfect timing as my dog starts barking downstairs. But yeah, thanks for having me, Becky. So yeah, I've been in kind of B2B sales and marketing for well over 20 years. I think I've seen marketing budgets squashed. I've seen sales people get laid off. I've seen all types of things, and this all relates to the accuracy of forecasting and that planning, whether it's kind of hiring people or building more machines or whatever you need to do. Your forecasting is absolutely critical to your business planning, and people get it wrong all the time. So I'm really, really passionate about this topic, seen lots of ways of doing it right and wrong, and hope to share some of that today.
Awesome, exciting. You should have a few more grey hairs with all that years of experience you've got. Rory, what about you?
Becky, thank you very much for having me. Hi, folks. I'm Rory. I'm one of the co-founders at a business called Cluster. We are a revenue strategy platform. We help folks with everything from forecasting to revenue reporting at the board. I started Cluster with my co-founder Dan back in 2017. Dan had a super interesting background working with Bank of England and the White House and helping them do forecasting in various ways. And just like Darren's mentioned, even in our short time in business, we've seen some real changes and ups and downs and roller coasters in the market, and the effects of not being in tune with where a market is headed, but also where we are really as a performance as a business as well, and how that affects people and institutions and livelihoods and projections and investments and all of that stuff. So a topic close to my heart, something I've invested well over my 10,000 hours in. Not saying I'm an expert, but I'm trying, and looking forward to the chat today.
Awesome. Absolutely. So, I mean, you've both alluded to what happens when you can get it wrong. It really has an impact on the people and your whole overall business. So how do some of the revenue analytics become inaccurate in the first place? Darren, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. I think it starts with process, right? So without a process, the way that forecasting often works is a sales manager going, well, what are you going to close this month or this week or this quarter? And where you might have somebody that is a highly optimistic person going, I'm going to close everything in my pipeline this quarter, and the next meeting might be a highly pessimistic person. And there's so many things that go into each of our personalities that kind of sway us in various directions. Yet the sales manager that's taking that information often takes that as gospel, says, right, okay, so you're going to bring me 50, you're going to bring me 20, that's 70, and I'm going to commit to 70. There's no process behind that. That's pure gut feel. And there's various things that can be done. Like, for example, you can build out a qualifying matrix. You can go back to something old school like BANT, or you can try something like MEDDIC or something like that to try and make sure that deals are a little bit more qualified. So if you're saying this, that you have asked these questions, but that's also still a little bit up to interpretation. So I think things become out of date or inaccurate, should I say, without process and by relying on kind of human judgment too much.
And I can definitely relate to that scrutiny of the salesperson and trying to understand whether they're a positive or negative forecaster. Rory, what would you add to that?
Yeah, great points, Darren. I agree with methodology and cadence and process and criteria. To look at it a slightly different way, we think about the value and the culture. So the culture of forecasting is kind of what's its popularity internally. Often it is not popular or not valuable, or worse, it's become something where there's not a lot of pressure on it because we've been so used to it not delivering for us. We've found another way to live. And I think if our people, our forecasters, are dialed in to what a forecast helps us do as a business, see, make good decisions, not make redundancies, get to markets first, grow careers. People are genuinely dialed into that, some excitement, some sexiness, dare I say, around that, then that's one huge area. The other area is forecasting something that people need to do, or is it a value exercise? So does a salesperson extract significant professional development, deal probability, coaching value from a forecast call? Or do they simply do the forecast call as a management information exercise to be passed up the chain? These are a couple of things on the softer side we look at, which I think often are overlooked.
Very interesting perspective for sure. Okay, so then if you need to find a forecasting model for your business, how do you identify the most suitable model for your product or service or industry? And what core things should you be looking for, I suppose, to add a bit of that sexiness to the process? Rory, do you want to kick things off this time?
Sure. Okay, so there's quite a lot here. I'll try and break this down as simply as I can. So the first thing is your sales motion. Forecasting enterprise sales is very much strategic deal forecasting. The methodology and the process and the alignment and the criteria that Darren mentioned has to be around a deal, because you're forecasting Coca-Cola, Facebook, and whatever else. When you get to an SMB market, you have volume, you have a number of reps, you have 500 deals in your pipeline, you have trends, you have conversions. And so the model that you use there can be a blend of human judgment and maths and stats and predictions, perhaps. So I think the first thing is, like, who are you as a business? A lot of businesses actually have both. And it's daring to say, well, we're going to have one forecasting model that's very mathematical and process driven for the SMB motion, and we're going to have a rigored deal focused deal forecast for the enterprise motion, and we're going to stitch those together at the end. Sometimes I see too much crossover there. I think the other thing as well is like channel. So for a lot of businesses out there, their whole demand engine has changed. They're maybe going through channel more. You know, we've been striking partnerships with good folks like people at Hubble. You have less control over those deals. You have less visibility over those deals. You don't have all the data in your CRM. They've got it. So adjusting for that and thinking about how you forecast that is very, very difficult. And the warning signals that come with that when we're in board meetings, etc., and talking about the probabilities. I'll let Darren go next on that one.
Yeah, I think it's, to Rory's point, like there's many different ways to sell, but I think what it really comes down to, when you're determining how you're going to forecast is you need to work out how your customer buys, right? Because certainly when I buy anything business to business, or even in my personal perspective, there's a process that I go through, whether it be going to do online research, or whether I have to go and get a purchase order raised, or an RFP, or speak to procurement, or speak to my manager, or whatever that process is. And each stage of that buying process, effectively, like if you know that the customer is at this stage of buying, you can know the probability of them getting approval to spend that particular money. If you are forecasting a deal to close when a junior person is doing research into a particular space, I mean, there's no chance that that's going to close. So I think what every company needs to do is they need to take, okay, well, what are we selling? And do customers buy this thing that we sell in differently in different markets? Do we sell multiple different products or services, and do people buy those differently in different ways? Once you map out your customer journey to buying, you can then start identifying the probability at each point of that deal actually becoming one. And then either you've got a model where on a regular basis you can go and update those probabilities, maybe on a quarterly basis, or if you're starting to use things like AI, that should start automatically updating. Because obviously if you're looking at this and you're analyzing, you want to see what levers can you pull to increase the probability of a customer moving on to the next stage. What you need to do, if you know that a customer is looking for social proof, for case studies that you've done this before, and that's the last decision they need, like if you can preempt that and send them a whole video series of things that you've done to give them that confidence, that increases the probability and can speed up that deal. So I think, in terms of what model should you use, there's so many different forecasting models, there's so many different qualifying matrices. As I said earlier, MEDDIC is currently popular, but just like MEDDIC, you don't have to stick to a popular qualifying matrix model. You need to actually stick to a model that aligns to how your customers buy.
And Becky, just to add one more thing, Darren touches beautifully there on the data required. If you wanted to get accuracy on how the behaviors and motions of different markets that you sell to affect forecasting, how you segment and capture that data reliably becomes huge. And too often we speak to businesses and they're still saying, oh, we don't trust our data yet. We don't trust our data yet. And I say, okay, well, this is a pretty fundamental issue. If we're still sitting there saying we don't trust our data, like, give me your plan for that right now and tell me how far along you are. Otherwise, how do you do the rest? And that comes back to the first question of behavior, process, cadence, giving value to people so they record data, not just extracting it from them. Super interesting.
Absolutely. So you've already mentioned the buzzword AI, but I just want to tap into one bit before we go into the AI route. Obviously, we've addressed several times that it's still people in the process, and the impact of having different salespeople involved means you get a different perception. But how can you use forecasting and data forums like your weekly forecast check as coaching opportunities for your sales reps? How can you bring them along to this journey? Any ideas?
Yeah, I think Rory said earlier, so many companies use that weekly meeting as an information capture moment, like which it really shouldn't be, right? Because if you're doing forecasting properly, you should be able to see that on some sort of dashboard or spreadsheet or something. So what are you actually spending that hour for, or that half an hour you spend it with a rep? What are you using that for if you can get that information readily? So I think, when kind of sitting with a sales rep, I think it comes back down to not only I suppose it comes back down, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but that qualifying matrix of like, why have you put this deal in this particular deal stage? Do you have these pieces of information? And I think salespeople find it very difficult to capture that information, because when they try and capture that information, it feels salesy. You know, like if I were to say, when do you think this you're going to sign the contract? You know, you immediately get the customer's back up. They don't want to tell you when they're going to sign the contract. Or what is your budget? You know, for like most of the time they don't want to give a budget, because then they feel that you will just propose whatever their budget is. They want you to get the best price. So the coaching that salespeople need is how to ask those questions without asking those questions. You know, like, because you need that information to be able to forecast. You need to be able to put in a close date. And then, yes, the AI can say things like, well, you've never closed a deal in 60 days before. Why do you think you're going to close one now? That's, you know, that's where we can start using machine learning and that type of thing. But fundamentally, we need to get that information. I feel like there's so little effort put into giving salespeople tactics to extract that information from their prospects.
Yeah, I agree with that totally, Darren. I think there's a big value area we notice that I think gets really overlooked. So reps and managers, by the pressure bestowed upon them, live very much in the month or the quarter and making it. And I think a forecast is a big strategic opportunity for a rep and a manager to talk about the health of a rep's business and pipeline total, and where their ability to hit quota is going now and in the future, as well as those tactical conversations. It's like two halves. So, you know, if we asked ourselves today, how in tune are our reps with their deals, we might give them depending on the business, 6, 7 out of 10. If we ask them, how in tune are they with their ability to hit quota this quarter or next quarter, we might give them a 3 or a 4, because they probably not even thought about next quarter yet. I think a forecast run well, particularly early in a quarter, when we don't know which deals are coming in yet, it's too early. How do we have a conversation and have data that helps us understand what are the tactics and course corrections I can deploy today to make a difference to how my business performs, to how predictable my business is, thinking like a CEO would. We wouldn't work for a CEO who can only talk about the current quarter. We all get behind CEOs who sell a vision 3 years in the future. That's why we work for them and work our socks off. So why would we expect any less of our reps, particularly if we pay them handsomely?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. I love the concept of not just looking at the next deal, but your coverage and the future and further down the line. It definitely seems more sustainable and the better way of thinking about it. Thank you for that. Okay, now we can talk about AI. So what tangible advantages do you see AI bringing to the world of revenue forecasting? How is it going to change our world? Darren?
So I've mentioned one or two things already. I think one of the big challenges, in particular in B2B, is quantity of data, right? Like, so many B2B purchases, you only need to sell one of those things a quarter, maybe even one a year. And like when you're starting to look at statistics, it's quite difficult then to actually forecast how, like, the probability of this deal coming in, because there just isn't the volume. As you grow as a business, or if you've got that kind of smaller products, you could end up with hundreds and thousands of transactions, and then you hardly even need AI in that case. You can start using just normal statistics to go, okay, well, 10% of these deals close. But the smaller the data set, the more difficult it is. And that's where you need to start using machine learning, AI. And in many cases, these forecasting engines or algorithms are getting data from other sources, not just your source, so that you can kind of augment that low volume of data you have. So I think there's massive value in being able to, especially for businesses where there isn't huge volumes, AI plays a massive kind of role there. And then I think, as mentioned earlier, I think the other big thing for me is leveling the playing field. You know, just because you were an A student and the other person was a B student, like how do you put them on the same level when they're forecasting, or like the optimist versus the pessimist? You know, like, and I think AI kind of levels that up.
Yeah, Rory, what do you think?
I hope it gets us back to closer to what do we want to achieve, or what outcomes do we expect from forecasting. So we look at it as we want accuracy, which is what everyone always talks about, but on its own, that's kind of meaningless. We also want visibility. I'll explain that. And we want predictability. And without those three things, with that triangulation, forecasting actually can't be used by an organization. So accuracy is, let's say we achieve 95%. Okay, visibility when? Is it 4 days from close day, or is it 3 months? 3 months is super impressive. 4 days before close day is not a forecast. It's like what we're doing tomorrow. And then last is predictability. Can you prove 95% from 3 months out every time? Or is it different each time? Because if you don't have predictability, how does the CFO trust it anyway? And it comes back to, how do we make forecasting meaningful? How do we make it reliable? Those are the three things. And I hope that, yes, the models are going to get better. Our data sets are going to get better. I hope that we're going to start seeing public data in our forecast models. If you're selling into healthcare and there's loads of news about NHS trusts and funding markets in that area, how do we have that influence how our own models and our own data look at that situation? What I really hope is that we're able to, right now there's a big black box around models, right? There's forecasting vendors out there. We have AI, great. What is it doing? Can I ask it questions? Like, how does it calculate? What is the model? How does it work? If we can query and ask it questions and say, why are you thinking that? Why is that move? Why are we doing this? That gives us context to talk about in a board meeting, and context helps us understand risk in the future and helps us make better decisions. That's where I hope will go. We shall see.
No, I can certainly feel that too. For me, it's a third opinion in the room that's perhaps a little bit more powered by fact than opinion, which is different to a sales manager, different to the actual sales individual. It's a different factual perspective that you can bring in to help you make some decisions. So yeah, exciting. But conversely, what might be the challenges for a business? I know we're all expecting this AI wave to come, and how do they really adopt this? And how can they overcome some of the challenges moving forward, do you think, Rory?
Yeah, I think the challenges we have today are still the challenges of now or tomorrow. Until we understand, if we're talking about a prediction, until we understand a prediction, how do we really use it? Because all it takes is for a market to flip the predictions out, and all of a sudden we don't trust our prediction anymore, and we're back at where we basically are today. So I repeat slightly, but I think we have an opportunity to understand more about. Daryn, you mentioned the leveling the playing field. I love that analogy. So whether you're an A or a B, there's an opportunity here to give people in their hands very smart models that they also understand and can talk about and quantify the risk of what they're doing with senior people in their business. I think if we get there, that's great. If it continues to be a black box, I still think we'll find it difficult, because there's public data, there's internal data, and then there's the coffee with the decision maker that happened yesterday. And there's body language and intuition and tone and relationship. We're still going to miss that element. And so I think we need to move to that world to make it all work together. I don't know. What do you think, Daryn?
Yeah, I love that you brought up intuition. I think my biggest fear with AI and forecasting is it's kind of a risk-averse approach to forecasting. So especially those forecasting models that can say, well, in 3 months or 6 months time, you're going to do this revenue. Now, as you said, like what happens when it says you're not going to do this amount of revenue? Now, the human intuition side of you might say, well, it's a downturn. I'm going to hold strong. Or I believe that we're going to run these things that we've never done before, and maybe we're going to exceed target. But the AI is going to tell you, no, go lay off some people now. Don't buy that new machine. And it's going to create this kind of risk-averse culture, and with no human intuition. I think so. That's one part. Also, once again, human intuition. Like with AI, those really important weekly meetings that you have with your sales reps, I think there's going to be a bunch of managers that go, well, why do I need to have those anymore? Right? I can go onto my super accurate dashboard. I can see what's going on because that's all I really want to see. And then we're not going to develop sales talent, right? Because how are we going to create the next generation of sales leaders? How are we going to teach them how to deal with humans and read body language and get that information out of a human? If you're not having those meetings anymore. So I see it already just with reports that don't even have AI in it, where people go, well, I don't need to meet with those people anymore, and you completely lose. Well, I suppose you're not investing in the future then, and I think that's a massive risk that AI brings across all fields.
Yeah, I still think there's a huge power and value in the exercise of your humans building your number through understanding and process and judgment and experience and market knowledge and all these wonderful things. I think that we cannot move away from that, because I think it's too important a role. We've just been through, as we said at the beginning, a very interesting and for many difficult year, where a lot of businesses got it totally wrong. So if it can help us get ahead of situations like that, where we're literally just we misunderstood leading macro indicators and got our plan totally wrong, I think that's where it can play a huge role. In terms of the accuracy of our own quarter-to-quarter forecast internally, we're rolling up deals and all that. So I think there's a lot of value in coaching value and strategic value in doing that as a human sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've seen that just by using Cluster, sharing that with our sales team, and giving them the insights. It really actually then can be an awesome coaching moment to help them really understand, because I think they're working in the deals, they are just punching in numbers sometimes, and they're not really understanding the impact of it. So it really helps them question, which so I'm hearing the need to still keep that human factor into everything that we are doing. Okay. So now looking into your crystal ball with all of your tons of years of experience between the two of you, but not a single grey hair, where do you see the future of sales forecasting going? And this is recorded, so we can definitely bring it up in the next 20 years, and see whether you were right or wrong or not. What do you think, Daryn?
Yeah, I don't think it's so futuristic. I don't think it's like kind of space age cars driving around like was predicted 20, 30 years ago, although the new Tesla does look pretty interesting. But I think obviously AI is going to play a kind of a massive role over at least the next 2 to 5 years in forecasting. I think I alluded to the ingestion of public data, which Rory very much positioned as a future thing. I think we still got massive worries about security and privacy and like what is like ChatGPT and so on allowed to ingest, and who does that belong to, and who's the copyright and all that type of thing. But that I think is going to play such a massive role in forecasting, is taking different public data sources and combining it with your own. I think it's not only kind of, I suppose, forecasting a number, but it's also then and you can see this already with some tools like Gong, HubSpot Call, and that type of thing. It's analyzing what somebody's saying, and in some cases, the AI is starting to, say, don't say this, say that, rather make you sound better, make you ask better questions. And once again, like at the moment, those models are very much only trained on your private data. Like imagine when you start getting that kind of a greater data set, and they can look at companies in your industry or in your region and what are sales reps saying and behaving, that can be incorporated into your own. So I think sales forecasting is going through a massive pivotal moment right now with AI. I think there's some incredible technology that has been launched, like the likes of Cluster. HubSpot's also got their AI kind of forecasting tools. I think putting those type of things together and just being at the fingertips of sales managers and salespeople themselves is what we're going to see more and more. I think the evolution of forecasting has very much been a financial model in a spreadsheet, and maybe there's the more sophisticated companies have like a Zap or something that sends information from your CRM into a spreadsheet, and then there's some financial modeling where I'm seeing like it's going to be more and more like kind of seamless and in platform.
Yeah, just saw Enrica's note about Tesla there. I don't know how recently that was. I know something happened fairly recently. I don't know whether that's like yesterday. All the Cybertrucks have been recalled or something. But yeah, I think I have a worry in terms of what's actually being done right now, and then a hope as to where we'll go with it. I think in the last 12 months, we've actually seen probably a wee bit of a regression in the quality of forecasting tools available. I think we've seen, largely driven by the market, like consolidating tech stacks and people making light forecasting products and almost like moving to a simpler way of forecasting. And my hope is that for years, we've been working on how to forecast deals and do that well. And there's still a long way to go there. I don't think the same effort and rigor and process and methodology and all these wonderful things, frameworks, MEDDIC, gets put into forecasting a number, which is a very different thing. How do you forecast? How do you predict a number rather than just predict deals? What happens when the deals aren't there yet and you still need to look at your motion and your business and where your deals are progressing and where your business will end further ahead? Because ultimately what we've learned is we didn't have the visibility as a sector that we needed. That's just what we've learned. And I hope that as we move into this new level of capability, we're able to, the solutions that are available focus very much on upskilling people and using the technology to gain visibility and to work out how to forecast a number, not just deals. If we move in that direction, I think we'll move to a very, very good place, and we'll see much less or many less businesses going through what they've been through this year. I also think that I think it plays a huge role as well in like giving better intelligence on the deals still. We do record a lot of interactions now, not for every sector, but for many sectors. And so we can use that better. We'll see where it goes. I think there's also unforeseens. There's also what we don't know. Like if you got Daryn and I back in 9 months, right? So much will have changed in that period that we'll probably have different answers. The things will have happened and been released, and someone will have produced something that's made us think differently about it. So be ready for that as well, I think.
Yeah, I think listening to you speak, one of the other things to kind of bring up is one of the challenges with forecasting is that you go through the business planning cycle often annually, and you have a senior leadership team that decides on a number that you need to reach. Now, from day one, the AI may be saying that's impossible. And often, a challenge is that a sales rep doesn't want to say, well, I'm not going to hit 10,000 this month. I'm going to hit 8,000 because senior management has said we need to do 10,000 a month to reach our goal. So what I haven't seen too much yet in all these AI tools around there is ability to do annual planning. So from the beginning, let's build a forecast that is actually achievable, as opposed to one where in a boardroom someone says we need to grow by 15% next year and they add 15% onto everybody's target, and that's how it was developed. I think like what we're going to see is obviously you can do cost planning, but I think that revenue planning side is going to also become more AI driven.
Yeah, I'm totally with you actually, Darren. I think a big part of what we're focused on next year is we've kind of got this weird situation at the moment where we've now using the word revenue to describe sales bookings technology, and we kind of got a bit confused. But how do we connect sales bookings to revenue? Because at the moment they're different teams, they're different systems, they don't talk. When we get them talking, we have an opportunity for the technology that's coming out today and tomorrow to help us like connect that plan. I totally agree. Like it's still mad how off a top-down plan can be and how achievable it is or isn't. I think there's actually probably a fairly quick win there. Hope it happens.
Excited to live in the future world that you guys are predicting. That sounds like utopia if we can get to that place. Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you, guys. That was great. Lots of interesting insights in there. Lots of things we can pull into our forecasting model. So I thank you for your time. I think we'll take you up on that offer, Rory, of getting you back in 9 months. And seeing if you've got any different predictions of the future. But thank you, guys. It's great to be there. So, and thank you for all of you for tuning in. I think this was live streamed, so I'm excited to see that. Awesome. Great. Thank you very much.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Becky.
Cheers.
Thank you. See ya. Bye.